ready to go.
Ready? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, the clock shows time, so I'm gonna call this meeting to order. Get back to the top page here. Alright, we have an agenda, and I thought we were gonna have changes to it, but it's already been changed, so, if we approve it, I will also take a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Second, if you're good with that.
Aye.
Okay, you'll take yours, I have, a motion and a second to approve the agenda as written. Any discussion? Since we're the it, I don't think there will be any, so that item is passed. Minutes, I would, to be honest, didn't get a chance to read through the minutes. I didn't get down to them. Are they at the bottom?
The second tab at the top.
There you go. Okay. I know it's brief, but is there any additions or corrections to the minutes that we know of? If not, I'll take a motion and accept the minutes as written.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second to approve the minutes as written. Any discussion? There's no discussion, so all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Since y'all were the ones, motion carries, all right. I believe that brings us to, since we have no public other than the people that are gonna be, talking anyway, so it brings us to the financial report.
Okay. So what we have, I gave you guys a handout. This first one, the lodger's tax revenue. This is actually just goes back to the 2009, 2010 year. And I wanted to kind of go through this report. You can see, you know, actually since 2017, we've almost doubled it, our lodger's tax revenue, the previous 2 fiscal years. However, whenever we were reviewing things, we've noticed that we've seen a substantial drop in our actual revenue. Now, these run a month behind, unlike our gross receipts tax. This is for gross receipts that was received, or I'm sorry, this is for lodger's tax. So the December amount that we received was actually for lodger's tax collected in November. So, but you can see we're at 68,000. Now, when we were creating our actual budget for this year, we based it on what we budgeted for last year, which was 152,000. Granted, we received 180,000. Which was good. It allowed for us to pay some for our larger projects with that excess revenue that we did receive. But right now we're sitting at only collecting about 44% of what we actually budgeted. You can see previous years where we've been well over 50%. So we kind of did some digging to look into, well, why are our GRT, or why is the lodger's tax down? So if you look on page 2, we actually, this is our gross receipts tax report. You can actually go on New Mexico Tax and Rev and look at this, but what they do is it shows our monthly distribution for gross receipts taxes, not lodger's tax, but it does break it down as far as amounts that were generated by each one of the industries. My first inclination was thinking that since construction is no longer going on at the judicial complex, because that was an Albuquerque-based contractor, I thought, well, maybe it's because construction is at a lull right now. But you can actually look under construction, which is the 4th one from the bottom of the graph. The gold bar represents our current fiscal year, and then you can see that we've actually collected more year to date in the first 6 months than we actually did on construction the previous fiscal year. So the theory really doesn't hold up. We only had a couple of other drops in GRT where it's a little underperforming in different areas, but that's just after the first 6 months. Another concept is that perhaps in lodger's tax, if an individual stays in a lodging, or well, basically where an occupancy tax is charged, if they stay longer than 30 days, that individual is exempt from paying lodger's tax. We have noticed that one of our local hotels is actually providing gross receipts tax payments less on the average of anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 from the previous fiscal year. But I know whenever I drive by at night or I drive by early in the morning, it appears to be full. So one thing that we're going to do is we have the ability to go out and audit these books, and the finance director is going to make that happen so we can determine where exactly is this loss occurring. So what does that mean for lodger's tax? Well, we have revised our revenue estimate based off of the actuals. So we're only looking at potentially only bringing in $135,000 total in lodger's tax if this trend continues. So what does that mean? Roughly 40% of the revenue generated has to go towards funding events like the folks have applied for. So that changes our cap. Our cap originally, I believe, was right around 62,000. It's dropped it down to 54,000. So year to date, we have provided funding in the amount of just under $18,000. So that means that we actually, out of that $54,000, we actually have a remaining balance of unallocated event funding of $36,000. So when you look at our financial report, which is the third page, what this is it's actual, your estimates. Of course, we have basically all expenses accounted for in our second quarter, so those are second quarter actuals. If you notice on the revenue projections, this number does vary by about $1,000 on that other sheet, but we do have one of our lodgers who hasn't paid yet. At least when I ran the report on the 9th, they were a little late in filing. But you can see that we have, as of December 31st, we had a $22,000, almost $23,000 cash balance. Unencumbered of that cash balance was about $12,500. We're expecting $39,000 in encumbrances, which is our dedicated entity funding that gets from there. And then, of course, we have a transfer to the general fund to help pay for public safety. And then, of course, our event requests. So what does this mean? We possibly will have a $4,400, $4,500 surplus. Well, whenever you look at the state law requirement, right here, $54,000 for events, the year to date, of course, that leaves our $36,000 unallocated. If you look at the recommendations, we have your scores, but then we also have staff recommendation. We're recommending that the maximum obligation for third quarter is only $7,800. That will leave us around $28,000 to $30,000 for funding in our fourth quarter, which is our largest and heaviest hard-hitting quarter, the summer months. That is our recommendation, and looking at your scores, there is about a $2,000 difference with what you guys had, the average scores recommended for funding. But that's kind of where we're at. Can we afford the 15.2 cap? We can. It just would mean that our fourth quarter is going to be pretty light as far as being able to sponsor or provide support to the different entities. And that's the financial report.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Do we, back to this page, whatever we called it.
Yes.
In 2016 and 17, that's the only other year that we basically were under projected budget in 2016.
I don't know what the budgeted revenues were, but they were probably right around 80,000.
Yeah. I was just wondering if I was trying to remember what happened in 2016.
We had that temporary slump.
15, I think it was down, yeah.
Was that what it was?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
15, the end of 15, it started down. 16 was a slump, and then
17, it started picking up, I think.
yeah, that sounds right. And I believe that was the case. So, and we haven't really seen that. In my experience, we haven't seen that much of a slump in, 2019. I was only involved half of the year, but,
Well, and one of the other things, of course, is the addition of the Comfort Inn, and that
Right.
caused the big surge too, because we had
oh,
more
absolutely.
capacity
Uh,
available, so.
Okay, well, the thing about it that I have learned is numbers don't lie, so we kinda know where we're at. And from what you said, and of course, it's probably on here somewhere, had you, our recommendations by the calculations would have been, what,
9,900,
9,900?
yes, sir.
And you're asking to, you are recommending, the staff is recommending to adjust that to 7,800.
Yes, sir.
All right, any discussion on any of that from the board?
And of course, remember, before we take any action, we do have the other discussion item as far as
Right.
their ability to comment, so. But yeah, the maximum total encumbrance or obligation that we're recommending
Right.
is 7,800. We could look at 99, but it does impact fourth quarter.
Right. Well, if we don't have any, just while it was fresh on our, if
Sure.
we don't have any, discussion, on it, then we'll go ahead and proceed on, with the presentation from at least the two that are here, and then we'll, move on to the action items and, work off of that, so we'll move forward, and thank you, James. for
Yes,
the-
sir.
I don't know if it matters, I think in looking at that, Jim, I think you were first. Doesn't matter, go ahead. You were here first, well, kinda anyway.
I'll be very brief.
Okay?
The fact is, I don't know what happened with one of mine. I'm just, what I gave you is what I have here, and this is supposed to be a duplicate of, I don't know what happened on that Taos ad business. And my figuring, we just forget about the Taos ad. I won't ask anything for that. If you decided you want to give some to it. But anyway, I have just really two programs that I have scheduled now. And that is one in February and one in early March. They're programs with one performer at Chautauqua, in which this guy is coming from Albuquerque to play and present as Esteban the Moor. This is the guy who traveled with Cabeza de Vaca in the 1530s, the first European to come over here in our part of the world. And then the music from Ranch and Open Range is Steve Cormier. He's a cowboy singer who's been here once before. I do have quite a few things that we present at the museum that come sort of on the spur of the moment. I have two other things that are scheduled, but they've scheduled after I've made this request here. And one of them is an exhibit that has to do with the Mescalero Sands, an archaeological exhibit, and then another art show. We have 3 or 4 art show openings every year at the Lee County Museum. And I appreciate the support that the board has given over the years. I've been coming to these for quite a few years now, and probably I've been coming to these longer than Mara has been alive. But I don't know, maybe not, maybe not that. I wanted
I don't
to
know, we
say,
thought they meet on that, Jim, to be honest, it's kinda scary.
but I don't know. I was going to say too that one of the things with the museum, this is we have 5 programs a week, just about the whole year. We're open on Tuesday through Saturday. And so in some ways you can think of what the museum offers the community is a place to come for people to come from out of town and from in town to be here. We have exhibits and people come. They come continuously, but we have new ones all the time. And I just thought that would be something to consider, you know, in choosing to support the advertising that we do. But again, I appreciate appreciate you guys having supported the museum as you have done. So, y'all have a question for me or anything?
Anybody on the board?
Okay.
No, sounds good, Jim, thank you. All right, Mark.
Hey guys, I remember 2 of my requests, but I think I have a third one. One of them is a collaboration with the Lovington Chamber of Commerce for another networking opportunity. We posted 3 in the last 6 months, and they've all been very well attended with a minimum of 26 people there. And our highest attended one had about 70 people there. So they've been doing really good. It's been a great way to collaborate with another entity and be able to bring other services for our businesses. The downtown lights is a second request. We're trying to really make the downtown look as pretty as it possibly can. We've been working with the county on some funding. We've been able to update create Storybook Park, and we will be updating Fran Ashley this next quarter. In order to keep going with that, we've also applied for some wayfinding funding from the state level, and we've gotten some from the county too. And so we just want to make the entire downtown be an actual experience for you. So when you walk in, it looks like it's, oh, we're not in Lovington anymore. This is a cool area. We can come hang out, maybe walk around, go to the different businesses, be able to go to the movies, go get a coffee, hang out at the parks and stuff like that. So we really want to be able to create that environment. So downtown lights is what we're looking at. They're the twinkle lights. They would hang from our current street lights, decorative street lights around the courthouse. So they would only be in that core area to start with. And then as more funding became available, we would just keep increasing. We are applying to other grants to help with that cost. But again, they're just really small amounts, and most of them require a matching amount. So I'm hoping to be able to use this as a match for any of those grants. And the third one, is it a Shop Local campaign?
Women leadership.
I forgot about that. Oh, that one's exciting actually. Another collaboration with the Chamber of Commerce. We're hoping to do a Women's Month, where we bring in women entrepreneurs to come in and do a mini work session, to hopefully get some of those businesses, just give them some resources, and also provide an opportunity to motivate other women to get involved. And it'll be during Women's International Day. So.
On the lighting project, cause it is a substantial portion of the budget this month. And how are you going to power? Are you gonna come off of the street lights and use them?
Yes, those streetlights are actually currently maintained by the city of Lovington. They are metered. So we would be able to pull electricity directly from those. So there's not gonna be like weird wires connecting to buildings or anything like that. It would just be like street light, twinkle light, street light, twinkle row, street light, all on Central, Washington, and Love. We received 5,200 last time to begin the process, and that'll actually cover one block. So we're hoping that with whatever you guys can help out with, we can get the other side of the courthouse done. It is going to be a phased project, so as money comes in, we'll be able to do piece by piece. And I know this is a terrible quarter. I know. But
Is there any number that the person, can he be contacted when sections go out? Like say a particular business?
So those
Have
pieces
them
are
do lights
actually
go
paid
out?
for by Main Street. So it's based on funding and budget, what our funding allows for. Because the original project was only budgeted to actually cover the cost of installation, not maintenance or the internet that they require to be turned on and off. Main Street currently maintains and pays for that. So anytime any of that stuff is out, it's just dependent on if we have the money or not. You're more than welcome to reach out to C&M Electric, and if the local business themselves would be interested in helping out with even a portion of it, we could definitely bring that up and talk about it. The ultimate goal, to be honest with you though, is to get those twinkle lights all connected and done, and for us to shut off the ones on the building. Just because they're really hard to maintain and the cost is really high for us. it would be a lot cheaper for us to
So
do the
these,
twinkle lights.
so these new lights, they're actually not the ones that are on the building?
No,
They're not a continuation of
No,
that?
have
They're
you had a
something
chance to go
completely
to the
different?
Storybook Park behind the library? If, on y'all's way out, if y'all want to stop by, that's a perfect example of the type of lights that they're gonna be on, and they're on a timer, so they come on when the street lights come on, and they shut off when the street lights shut off. Those are currently connected to the building, and you'll be able to see the wiring that I'm talking about that these won't have. But if you just drive by, you'll see them, they're cute, they're like the outside,
They're like
Twinkle
Edison
lights.
style light.
yeah. You know, I was like, I don't know,
I'm
like-
assuming these are LED, right?
yes, yes, yes.
And I realize that we've probably funded it from, but I didn't ask the question back then. You and the city have a contractual agreement, they'll pick it up and whatever? Okay. I'm assuming since we're already to that point that you are, okay.
I mean, and I'm all for the lighting, I love that, I love seeing that. It's just, it would be nice to hold the person that puts them in accountable for when they go out. Can you
It's-
please come and fix them, change
So
the
that would be
strand
us
or
though,
something?
that's what I'm saying though, the person that put them in was us, so that would be Main Street, and it's just not in our budget to be, the last time we replaced the theaters, it cost me $6,000.
That, and is there a potential and a possibility that this is gonna happen again? That's why I'm.
Well, that's why
a
I'm-
little more reluctant.
It's the style of lighting, that's why I'm
So
trying to
it's-
switch, and then on
Okay.
top of that, I'm trying to make it to where they come out of, they're receiving a lot of damage being up there on the building. It's a lot harsher of the light, the sun coming in, weather, all of that stuff. So I've been told these hold out better. They're they're very prominent in California, in their downtowns and in their areas.
That's where I've seen them, and
yes.
that's where I enjoy from
Yes.
when I
So-
jog through neighborhoods,
so-
and I see that, and it's pretty, and you enjoy that, and so that's
So
what we're
it would
getting.
be,
That
it would be,
great.
it would be more similar to those, and then we're hoping, I've been told the maintenance is a lot less on them, they're not gonna get
Prone
killed
to-
by weather as bad. And then they'll be easier for us to maintain, that bulbs are a lot cheaper than replacing an entire rope of light. So there's also that, and Chuck has been really kind, and I actually have a giant box of bulbs.
Nice. Okay.
That's
Do you
just
have
in-
like a long-term lighting plan that you could present at some point? Kind of show the.
No,
how
but
we-
I could probably put one together for sure, I could do
It doesn't
that.
have to be real elaborate, but
Uh-huh.
at least it would be something for us to see.
To see?
As we can, because one of the problems that, you know, and this is just my feeling on, instead of moving forward, we're kind of going back and redoing the first part of it.
Mhm.
And,
And it is.
right, and, you know, hopefully we'll get, better results out of the replacement of that.
I could definitely do, we actually work with a landscape architect that's already kind of produced a similar, like, for example, this is what it would look like. So I could definitely write it out in a phased, and then list the number of streets that we're actually planning on doing this in, because it would only be the core area, it wouldn't be the entire downtown. It would just be like Library Street, which is Avenue A, Washington and Central, and then Adams, I believe. And it'd be on both sides,
Okay,
so I could definitely do.
any other questions? All right. James, as a city person now, or whatever, what's the city's view on this particular project?
On the lights,
Yeah.
well, I know, just, you know, informally discussed it with a couple of different commissioners, and they like just the downtown improvements that we have, so, I would like, I know that the lights over at the park by the library, they look really good, and I think it would look good especially around the courthouse square. Because one, we already have the electrical infrastructure there. The other phases though, for instance, like over on Washington, that project, of course, we did have some funding to work on improving electrical, ADA, and pedestrian improvements. So that project isn't actually gonna be going to bid anytime soon. Just due to the potential, well, the engineer estimates and then also the feds have delayed it as well. We also have along Main Street, of course, the rework of Main Street. In the first phase, that will be done. So definitely, Central, it's pretty much gonna be untouched. So Central would be a good spot. Then also you have the east side of the courthouse. Those two areas basically are finished to put those lights in. So as far as adding Washington or any of the other streets, we need to wait until we get some construction, so that way we're not having to modify or replace them because poles have been moved and instead of buying the equipment and letting it sit there. But it's gonna be a nice improvement once all of it gets funded.
Well, the lighting around the courthouse has really enhanced it a lot. I mean, and, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, it's been, we believe we finally have the electrical issues downtown fixed. We do
Resolved.
have, I think, 2 lights that still, the electrician's having to troubleshoot. And they're not all on the same circuit. So it's taking a little bit of time, but also it's trying to get an electrician to come down and work on it. But yeah, it's nice, and we're switching. Everybody at first was upset because we were switching from the green plain poles to those the black style that are on Central, but those complaints have stopped because they're still very similar. They're actually a little bit more decorative. I think this would be a nice compliment to them.
All right, because of I'm sure because of the rescheduling of the meeting and the other 2 entities that had requested, which basically might have kind of talked about their projects that are with the chamber, and Alfredo is not here.
Yeah, so I know that the past 2 quarters we've awarded funding, but the tournaments have not occurred. I
Oh,
don't
really?
know why. Yeah, yes, they haven't occurred. So we haven't had any expenditures. That's why the amount awarded last quarter didn't match what the actual expenses were. And that's simply due to the fact that the event did not occur. So, I mean, we could potentially consider funding this for this particular quarter, but I don't know of any guarantees of is this actually going to happen. I know there's been some emergencies that came up, and I don't know if it was a lack of participation on one of the others. That was 6 months ago, but.
Sorry. I'll get a question out here in a second. In that case, if we awarded them, but they didn't use it specifically for that event, or there was no disbursement.
Right.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. What, the money that was set aside, it just went back into the general fund?
No, it stays in the lodger's tax fund.
That's what I mean.
Correct, yes, sir.
Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Now, goodness, I'm gonna have to find some water or something, or I'm not gonna be able to talk.
Where?
There's some.
Oh, there's some.
Oh. Try this again.
So can this just be rolled over then? to
Well,
next
my
quarter, or
question
that
is,
what-
if it wasn't used, in the whole scheme of things, how is that money, is it included in the whole report? Is it part of the?
Correct, so that, the unused award from the last quarter
Mhm.
is part of that current cash balance that we have.
Okay.
So yes, and we changed that, you have to expend that unless this body says different. You have to expend it in that actual quarter. If you don't use all of it, you can't transfer it to another
Can't move
project.
forward.
You can only spend it on that particular one, but, I'm pulling up his request. I don't know when Wild Bunch actually has their tournament. Looks like March, towards the end of the quarter, March 14th and 15th. is when the dates that he has down for that tournament, so. But, you know, he may actually be able to do it. I think the previous quarter, or the first 2 quarters ago, we did wind up, he withdrew his request, I believe, because the fields were still being renovated. But last quarter, they were open, they were in use, but the tournament did not occur, to my knowledge, and we haven't received a request for a reimbursement.
Do we have the ability, let's just say that we, when we get to the recommendation, and we deal with the recommended amount or whatever we choose, if we were to set aside a portion for this tournament,
Yes.
and it was not used, could we then say, that amount could be,
Allocated to somebody else.
allocated to the requesters that, like,
I think you could.
can we
Yeah,
do that?
I think you could. We would just have to specify the amounts.
The amounts, right.
If
Okay.
you equally divide it amongst the other projects, or if you want X amount for this, we could definitely do that.
Okay,
Or it just carries over into the next quarter.
all right. All right. Any questions, discussion?
In this case, so we don't have to fund him $1,000, I mean, if.
We don't have to, that's what I'm saying. We could set it aside,
Right,
because it is, in my opinion, when he does have them, they're good for lodger's tax. Or they're good, they generate a considerable amount of lodger's tax. But if he doesn't have them, then we are in effect punishing not punishing, it's not true.
It's tying up funds that could be used for another
They can
project.
be used for someone else. So, I guess what we can do is, if we're ready to move on to the action items, then we could consider the disbursement. We have the option of accepting staff recommendations. We have the option of proceeding with the our weighted average request, which is the 9,900, right?
Maximum.
Yeah. We can look at the staff recommendation of 7,800 and accept that, and then reallocate, set it aside, and then at the end of the quarter, if there's more, then divvy it up to the requesters. I'll take a motion, and anything y'all wanna proceed with?
Okay, so is that the motion to?
Oh, whatever.
Well, you gave you options.
Okay, I see what you're saying, okay. All right. Okay, well, I make a motion that at the end, what is it, at the end of this, is it the quarter or
March, isn't that
end
March?
of March, if the tournament doesn't happen, then those
What was his
$1,000.
March 14th and
March.
15th.
I would say then after, if it doesn't occur as of March 15th, then that allocated money then could be, is that good with? Okay.
That's good with me, dispersed.
So basically, the way I'm understanding it is we are going to take staff recommendation,
Right.
and then, okay, now then, if we take that amount, how would you like to disperse that? We've got, Main Street and, the museum would be the Main Street Chamber, combined events, and then, which would have already happened is probably the problem. But I'm guessing the majority of, Monty, help me out here. The majority of your, request for the networking session and the leadership, women's leadership session, what you're requesting, a lot of that is for, good grief, marketing or whatever materials or, ads or advertising. And if, let's just say that we don't fund you enough to get there, some way your organization is going to pay that, right?
Yes.
Okay, Jim, you're gonna be the same way, right? I mean, if you ask for $1,000 worth of advertising and we allot you 500, you're still gonna do the $1,000 worth of advertising effectively. Is that the way it works? I don't know what you do internally, so.
I think it depends on sponsorships and donations. For us, at least, and I'm sure it's the way it is for Jim too. Most of the times when Lodgers Tax doesn't fully fund us, we go out and recruit for sponsorships.
Okay.
The museums spends quite a bit of money every year on advertising. We get to a point where we're having something and I'm saying things like, if I don't have the ads, then we're not gonna have people here. People are not gonna know about it. Give you an example, that Towels ad that goes out to 15,000 people. It's like a quarter of a page ad in that magazine. Anyway, it cost me $750. You guys gave me $250 last time. We paid the $500, and I do that on every one. I'll tell you another one from this last quarter. So we spent roughly $3,000 more than what I'd been given on a couple of different events. So, but we feel like we need to do that, and it's not like the museum is a wealthy place over here. We
I
run
understand.
on the ragged edge.
I guess my question is at March 15th, even though these events that you've asked for could have already happened, okay? But, you would be able, if an audit or whatever, you could basically say, if we had this money left over, you could show that you applied it to, those events, advertising or whatever.
Well, you could do a couple of things. You could just go ahead and guess. I mean, I could go ahead and
True.
just do it anyway, because I'm gonna spend it anyway.
Right.
But, but you could also do an ad, do ads that say, thank you, for the support, for these programs that we had last month, or the month before.
Go ahead.
If I may,
Sure.
I would rather the money go to the next quarter.
Okay?
Just because that is our heavy event quarter, like
No, and that's a
Part
good,
of it, well, maybe Matt would say too, part of it would be, how much are we talking about here? How
oh,
much is he being?
$1,000.
$1,000.
$1,000 bucks.
Just kick it to the next one and go.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so if you, I'm always.
You'll take it whenever you get
Yeah,
it.
Right.
and thank you for it.
So if I can't, I'd make a recommendation.
Absolutely.
So we can, you can either make a motion to accept staff recommendation, and that's it. And if he doesn't have the event, it does, it automatically rolls over.
Right.
But if you want to keep that money in this quarter, you would just basically, if they, accept staff recommendation, if Wild Bunch isn't held by March 15th, then the allocated funds would be dispersed equally to Main Street and the museum to be used on the listed projects for this quarter at their discretion.
Right.
But it's either way would work.
Well, one other thing I thought about, what if we did not pay those in a timely manner in the ads and pay it later at the end of the third month, the end of March?
Did not
Do you ever
request
pay
the
that?
money?
No.
Well, I mean, if they sent the bills for these ads, if you didn't pay, if she and I did not, decided we didn't want to pay the Hobbs News Sun until the end of March, they're gonna take it. And you could very easily, spend it then.
I would still prefer it for smoking on the log reporter.
effectively it's back in our court, and that is, we have discussed the options, and it's gonna come down to, do we wanna divvy it up this quarter, do we wanna hold it till next quarter? So, what I will say is, we've got, of the two people that are here, and we appreciate your input, so now you've kind of thrown us in a quandary. Okay, Mara would like to take it to the next quarter, and I can understand that, and Jim would like to have it now. In Jim's behalf, and this is my next point is, Jim, at the beginning of this, you said forget Taos. Well, we already have a staff recommendation of $300. So,
Don't forget.
why don't we, I mean, if it's okay with the board, I'm gonna say, you're already getting 300, the maximum you could possibly get out of this is 500 if we split it dead evenly. And you're gonna get your share of it out of the next one. For simplicity's sake, it is my opinion and recommendation only as a part of you guys that we just kick it into the next quarter. But I'm open for, if anybody here has any other feelings and differently, I will certainly listen.
I personally am okay with kicking it to the next quarter as well.
All right, then,
Just keep it on.
then I take that as a motion that we're going to take staff recommendation with the, and I'm sorry, I'm feeling good today, I can't even think of the right words, but that if the Wild Bunch does not have their event, then that money will be, which it automatically does, roll over into the next quarter, or go to the general fund.
I second.
Okay, all right. And since it's just us, I don't see that we have to vote, because you two are the only ones that are voting, and you're making the motion and seconding, so. All right, then that, I guess that's the way we're gonna do it, and, do you wanna show, I mean, I don't know if you still show them
No,
where they end
I
up, or-
get, because it's
Are-
harder to read.
I understand, okay, just give them their. And hope that the occupancy rate goes up.
God, I hope so. That would be good.
Anything further? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.